Everybody. Good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are, and welcome to this lovely panel that we have in front of us, who is going to be discussing on how can we reimagine current leaderships, what are the different pathways to it, perhaps analyzing what has currently been, the pain point and what are issues that trouble all of us. And we have Bianca, who is the Director of Clean Tech from Iberia. We have Mansi, who is a warrior of the heart, and Violetta, of course, who is the curator of Ecocivilisation. She will also be moderating this session. So over to you, Violetta.
Thank you very much. And it's really exciting to actually lead the conversation or hold space for this very important conversation that I hope will continue in many different groups and within many different networks. Reimagining the leadership is one topic that it keeps offering itself. And why so? Because we hear about leadership so much all the time, and look where we are, constantly talking about serious challenges, constantly talking about serious problems, even becoming too overwhelming sometimes. Complexity is growing, and somehow the confidence in leadership is weakening. So I'd like to address this issue and see, is this just a perception? Is that a reality? Where can we go from there? Everything we're going to be talking today will continue to be promoted and available on the Connectathon webpage. Connectathon is a platform that 3 different organizations hold for people to come and dream, discuss about possible civilizational challenges and ways forward. And it is really a heart-to-heart with humanity itself. And that brings the topic of leadership also at the core of it. To start this conversation, I just wanted to put forward few thoughts that currently are very much associated with the concept of leadership. And the most standard definition of leadership is that leadership is the ability to guide, influence, inspire individuals or groups to achieve common goals or objectives. On the other hand, leadership, it's also an effectively directs and coordinates efforts within an organization, team, or a community. But I also liked one definition that it says that the true essence of leadership lies in the ability to inspire and mobilize others towards achieving a shared vision or a goal. It's about making a difference in the lives of individuals and the success of the organization or community. So this is just a little provocation as an introduction to the topics we're planning to discuss today. What is really leadership? Is leadership in crisis? Is there an opportunity for something new? What is now all this fuss about the leadership 5.0? And I will be doing that with 2 dear guests, Bianca Dragomir, as Isha already has said. She's currently Director of Clean Tech for Iberia, advisor, European Commission founder, Cluster of Change, European Cluster Manager of the Year. So a lot of very prominent positions as a leader, and we'd love to hear from her. And a dear friend, Mansi Yasuya, who's looking at the leadership maybe from another point of view, maybe from a point of view of conscious business. She is a practitioner of art of hosting and harvesting meaningful conversations. She's a speaker, systems rebel, as she calls herself, and a warrior of the heart. So with these 2, we will start the discussion. And as I said at the beginning, dear Mansi and dear Bianca, we've heard some definitions, but what is leadership to you? How do you feel it? How do you relate to this topic? Do you ever think about this when you engage at your positions, within your groups, within your communities? Bianca, let's kick the discussion with you first.
Thank you so much, dear Violeta, first for hosting us and for holding the space for this meaningful conversation, especially today on leadership. I would say that in my current work, my mission is to shape transitions into action. So certainly this is intertwined with leadership. And to answer your question, what is leadership to me? I would say leadership is creating the energy, the right energy by bringing the right people at the right place together in shared purpose. So leadership is that energy that affects rapid change by bringing these people together, most of the times from different backgrounds, different types of stakeholders that create together a ripple effect that affect change and what matters for people and for the society in general. It's leadership is something that unites the minds and the soul and that shapes them into something bigger than themselves, but also brings the voices, but also the action. Because what we are talking here is about a leadership that executes real change. And this is much more needed. This is today more needed than ever, I would say, when we are facing this poly-crisis, when we look about the climate emergency, we look about the wars, we look about global rivalry, about the fierce competition, about all these challenges that we are facing at the same time. So we certainly need leadership that is meaningful, that makes people in organizations a better version of themselves. And with that, also turns the leader himself or herself into a better version of himself or herself.
So these are very profound words, beautifully said. How do you, when you are on the spot, on your positions, how do you manifest that? Can you constantly think about it? How you're going to create a more than just a sum of individual actions or thoughts? Is this in your mind when you lead, or how does the leadership come about for you on the spot?
On the spot, I think more about flourishing change, affecting rapid change, rather than using or acting with the right leadership. I think the leadership is a consequence of setting this purpose. So when you set the mission and you set the right intention, then it's the energy that it's being created, and that actually has an amazing power that turns leadership into something that is really shared. So leadership today, I think, is the co-leadership. I currently run Clinic for Iberia, which is an initiative that brings together the leading investors, innovators, universities, incubators, banks, family offices, in a common goal of turning the Iberian Peninsula into Europe's next clean tech industrial leader. And in this initiative, this is a coalition of the willing. This is people coming together, bringing the best that they have and becoming leaders themselves. So I think that is if there's a formula, this is not rocket science, of course, but if there's a formula, that is the formula that works. Everybody becomes part of this change. There's a co-ownership of this change, and everybody embraces leadership as if the future mattered. And I think that is exactly the key today on leadership. We have to look at leadership from a different angle than before.
Super. Listening to you very carefully, I had an impression like that in space between the lines, you're offering us a leadership as a collective consciousness, not only as an individual act. Is that correct?
And that is correct, because look, if we look at technology, there's been an amazing progress, and it's happening as we speak. But what is technology without, the going at the same pace in terms of consciousness? And I think that the latter, is going really not at the same pace. So I think that that is the challenge today, and that's why leadership and co-leadership and shared purpose is really so important, because we need to really change our definitions of success. We need to really embrace the business unusual. We need to bring at the table not the usual suspects, but the unusual suspects, really bringing governments, bringing investors, bringing philanthropists, bringing academia at the same table, united in a shared purpose, talking about and really breaking the silos. I think that is what really the world needs. Not only that it needs, it's calling us to do it with an eye on the clock.
Hold on this thought, because you just open up another important topic, which is what are really the tasks of the collective leadership, or even individual in many cases. So what are the tasks? But we'll go into that later. Now I'd like to bring on board Mansi. Hello, Mansi. Well, great having you with us as well. And you probably resonated with what Bianca said, but you're coming from even much deeper, I would say even spiritual realm of this collective leadership and the power of participatory engagements that lead to this collective leadership. How would you describe the leadership? What is that for you?
Well, as I was listening to Bianca, I was just thinking, I'm just so grateful that she's there and she's doing the work that she's doing, because I'm holding indeed a different sphere as we speak. And I think that complementary roles are really needed. And that's why this panel is so interesting. And to bring in my perspective, I think if Bianca is speaking a lot more about leadership as doing, I'm thinking a lot about leadership as being, which is remembering back into who we really are. How are we really humans? How are we really, Bianca spoke about the unity of people, and that at a really fundamental, visceral level of collective leadership. I feel for me, leadership, to speak about it would be really incomplete if we don't speak about the ability to care. Because any leadership without caring, without kindness, without that love for what you're working towards is completely incomplete. And I think that is the drive for people to do anything. When they care about something and they come in service of something. So for me, those words in Hindi, we have the word seva, which is very much at the core of my work as well. How can we be of seva, which is being of service to something? And I think that's something people tend to forget. And then there's something also about power here, which I think, Bianca, you would also be working a lot with that. But leadership is also about knowing that you have power, and how are you able to use that power in a generative way to be in service when you care about something. So I'm just sort of, putting those beads together as we speak. And I think the fundamental quality, maybe we will still speak more about the qualities and but for me, it still is listening. It's, it's bringing in all of those voices which are there, which are not often heard, which are not often actually present, even if it's the collective of the willing, because the willing are always privileged. What about the ones which are not privileged? Where are we bringing those and listening into those voices? So I think, yeah, I'm kind of more and more in that sphere of listening to the edges. And I wonder if there are more leaders doing that.
Okay, Mansi, you open up here, I feel really a very sensitive element. On one hand, we all speak about inclusion, right? It's on the mouth of all politicians as well. But at the same time, we are constantly talking about the deprivileged. So how come we still have deprivileged people if we have inclusive society? It's a sort of contradiction in terms. So what would you suggest, or how would you share some of your experiences? Which experiences lead you maybe in what you were just saying, to the responsibility of the leader is to make sure that everybody is included, that there is no deprivileged people, that the voices that are interested in participating are actually included. How would you go about, or what is your experience in that realm?
Well, what's coming up is that there's nothing wrong with having power or privilege. We all have it. We are all here. We all use it. But it's about becoming aware of what is your power, what is the privilege, what is the who are the ones who do not have that privilege and power. So that awareness of knowing your own power and then doing something with it in a generative way, I think that is critical. And I've seen that with some leadership, of course, but quite often we see the power not being used in a very good way. But there are stories of, I mean, we've always had historically also stories of people using their privilege and power. Look at Gandhiji from India, who has used that and used their voice to create conditions for other people who did not have that power or privilege. So it's about opening up a space, using your power to open up that space. And I guess that's what we are doing.
Opening up the space, Mansi. How do you do that? What can leader do in order to open up the space?
Oh, there's so many things. You could do it by leaning back and allowing others to come into the thing, by listening deeply into the edges, by creating conditions or level playing field for more people to come in. I mean, I'm sure Bianca has also many examples of this. I'm looking at her as I say it. There's so many ways, but also by modeling humility and you know, I was in a quite a not a very nice conversation recently about a feministic conversation where this person said, "Oh, but I always allow women in my office to do their best." And I'm like, "What do you mean allow?" You know, so it's like also that language of people in power still think they need to allow other people. No, we don't allow, we welcome, we invite them with grace. There.
Very important messages, really. Bianca, would you respond to the invitation that Mansi already passed to you? So how do you open up the space in order to make sure that you do not have deprivileged members, that you do not have silent members? How do you handle that within your organization?
Well, first of all, well, of course, Mansi's words are always music to my ears. So I would like to build on each and every sentence that she just mentioned. And of course, I fully agree that in doing, in order to focus on doing, you first need to focus on being. And when these two meet together, united in meaning and in purpose, then that's where the magic starts to happen and the change starts to happen. And I think that's the word that unites all of us here above everything. And in order to involve, to be inclusive, to reach out, to integrate multiple voices, different voices, as you say, you need to welcome that. And I think it's coming back to my first reflection. It's the energy. I think I was reading the other day, 70% of the job to be done whenever you are building an ecosystem or you're building this sort of change processes is your energy, because that's what people feel, that's what people resonate with. So if it's from where you do this, if it's genuine, if people feel much more your why than your how or what, So if people connect with your why, then the what is much more easy. So their integration, everybody's integration, everybody finds a space and a place. And I think that's the power, the true power of leadership is everybody to find a place and space to contribute, because everybody can shine and can bring to the conversation. So, of course, that many times shaping transitions into action starts maybe with, well, a coalition of the willing, and then others join this. In order for others to join, you need to start somewhere. You need to start building where is the center of gravity. My vision is that you build the center of gravity, and then you build different centers of gravity, and then you interconnect. Because nowadays leadership is polycentric. In everything. If you look at the challenges that we have, leadership can only be polycentric. And if we want to speed and scale innovation for climate action, to tackle the health issues, to tackle, really geopolitical problems, this can only be like this. So I also see that the center of gravity is really shifting. I see that, look, I'm very much focused now on clean technologies, and shaping and moving the innovation industry forward. And if we look at the green industry and the industrial developments, you see that there's a lot of shifts. You see that what traditionally used to be, the pole of industrialization in Europe, in Germany, is really shifting somewhere else. It's shifting where the clean energy is being produced, because that's actually, it's a cost competitiveness for the industry. So we really see that the center is moving towards the periphery, and this will constantly happen. So I think we need to be very mindful and present with those changes, with these subtle shifts, and also to really be able to integrate everybody during the journey. This is not a nice, shiny idea. Of course, this is where we are heading, all of it. But that's where doing comes and plays a role. That's where doing, for me, is super important, because it's the energy transition, or the climate action will not happen by itself. It's a doing thing. We need to make it happen. So that's where we need to kind of, one stakeholder at a time, we need to get them involved and find the meaning and create value propositions for each of the stakeholders. And I think that now more than ever, and it's a really exciting moment in this, it's like everybody plays a role, from the government, and not only the government in action, to the business, to the smallest startups, to the foundations, associations, universities, investors, business angels. Everybody has a role to play. And if we do it together, if we understand and raise the consciousness that we need to do this together, creating even small experiments, then they can scale up and transform, then that's the way forward. And the world, I think, is really calling us to do it fast.
Great. So let me just do a little summary of this first short discussion. You both brought forward two very important aspects of leadership: leadership by doing, and leadership by feeling, sensing, on one hand. But both of them are connected through leadership being an energy flow. Is it more technology, innovation focused, or is it more caring, loving, and really serving oriented? Both of them, they try to work on a collective act. So our two guests, Mansi and Bianca, really put forward a couple of words that we're invited to keep in our minds. On one hand, the leadership is becoming polycentric. Very important message. So we have to be aware of that and look for these dynamic transformations of ecosystems within which leadership is exercised, if I understood you correctly, Bianca. And on the other hand, we have this all the time also this center of gravity, which we also have to be aware. It almost appears contradictory, but it creates a system view, really. So let's say we nailed the concept of leadership at least a little bit down, that we can move now forward to my next question. With all these really profound definitions, awareness rising in the topic of leadership, transformative leadership styles being put forward. But let me be a bit provocative now. In spite of all that, in spite of all this knowledge and all this awareness, when I look around, we are in bigger and bigger trouble. We have constantly these ethical failures. More we invest in basically addressing the poverty, more poverty is there around the world. Development gaps are growing. They are shifting, like you mentioned for leadership, also the development gaps are shifting around, and they get different points of gravities. Social distress is growing. Destruction of natural habitats is growing. Somehow, it appears on a global scale that we are losing a shared vision for humanity. I mean, wars seem to be the only solution to the unresolved conflicts in a large scale. It seems like we have poor global crisis management. Pandemic was just a great example of this. Climate change, inconsistent policies, simple solutions for very complex problems. And I could go on and on and on, right? So how do we position these profound definitions of leadership that we just heard in this kind of global situation? Are we at the beginning of reshaping, and we are just still seeing the consequences of the mindset, old mindset? Or is the leadership altogether, the concept of leadership in crisis? How do you feel about that, Mansi?
Yeah, what's coming up for me is even before, when you were speaking about the leadership, polycentric, and the center of gravity, I was already thinking that, yeah, it is actually already being polarized. If you look at the global scenarios, or, I mean, we've just had elections in India, we've just had elections in the Netherlands, where I'm based. And I mean, the news from around the world is that these centers of gravities are actually being torn apart more and more, and kind of reaching the extremes. So the crisis is coming from that pull and push of these two very different ways of being. And one of them is leadership, which is holding on to what was there in the past, which is the older, the more dinosaurial way of leading, which is more very power down, top down. And the other is this growing consciousness and this growing remembering again of how are we actually in part of this bigger ecological spheres, which is more the bubbles in which both Bianca and I are working in. However, in the world, there is that, the disruption is very, very visible to anybody. So yeah, it's kind of hard to stay optimistic these days, especially this week, given the last 3 days of bang, 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 all these interesting news coming from the USA. Maybe Bianca, you are a bit more optimistic about this than I am. Bring me some optimism here.
Yeah, Bianca, I mean, how can you, with all these profound ideas of leadership, and I'm sure that you're exercising them daily, how do you position yourself, what Mansi just described and what I put forward as some sort of observation of the conditions in the world right now?
Well, I think that we all agree that anxiety is on steroids nowadays when you read this news, when you see what is happening. So let's not sugarcoat this. This is hard. The challenges that we face is probably something that, well, it's certainly, the hardest challenges that humanity has ever had to face. Look at last summer in Spain with the historic record in heat waves and drought. Look at the fact that We need to decarbonize the world at a speed that is 12 times faster than the maximum speed that we've achieved so far in this. We got the fact that we need a six-fold increase in investment of climate change mitigation by 2030. There's certainly a quest for velocity. The problem is here speed and scale, if we look at particularly at the climate action part. And of course, whenever there's velocity, there's also friction. That these all big societal challenges are hanging on governments, are hanging on people. So certainly this creates these frictions. And the world is getting polarized. That is a fact. So again, let's not sugarcoat this. This is hard. This is gonna be hard. But what do we do with this? I think that the bigger the darkness, the bigger the light that we need to bring. So leadership is what gives hope here. What can bring hope? And in my work, and I'm really blessed to be able to work in the space of innovation and the space of the latest business models in tackling climate change, because this is about entrepreneurship, this is about innovation, and this is about hope. So I'm constantly nurtured by this energy that gives hope, because there are solutions coming up. And I also see that this new leadership mindset that we all need, it is happening as we speak. It is happening because I see people partnering in totally new ways. I see people partnering shamelessly. I see bold, I see laser-focused public and private partnerships. I see alliances happening, the work that Ecocivilisation is doing. I see this happening, and that gives me hope. I see investment partnerships. I see blended finance mechanism coming together, governments together with pension funds or institutional investors really helping to scale clean technologies on water, on energy, on resource efficiency that the world needs. Of course, we are far away from making this happen, from reaching there. And there's constantly new challenges coming. I was reading the other day a report that was saying that we have 44% more renewable energy now than years ago, but we are consuming so much more electricity that even the fossil fuel electricity has risen because we are consuming much more, because the developing countries also want to have that consumption and that quality of life that we've enjoyed in
Bianca, this is such an important point that you just made. So in spite of these incredible efforts for readjustment, to build the resilience and also introduce sustainable new technologies and new solutions, on the other hand, who's managing the growth then that is basically eats and goes even beyond of all these positive changes? So at the end, summary is unfortunately negative. So where do you see an opportunity to actually go beyond that, to the positive leadership, if I can call it that way, could build a stronger capacity and overpass this old style negative sort of push the growth leadership that has no sensitivity for negative externalities? Where do you see an opportunity? I mean, you're working with all kinds of representatives of all kinds of industrial mindsets. There must be something encouraging from your experiences that could show the way forward.
I see that people, what we all need is, we need to remember really our unique power to lead from a different area. We need to really remember what's driving us and find a different pace in this, in the consumption, in the production, in the innovation. That's what we need to do. And I see that there is a shift here, but it's not happening at the speed and at the scale that we need, that the world needs. So that is disheartening. At the same time, it's also hopeful because it is happening. And I think the lowest we reach in terms of the highest despair, if you want, with regards to these challenges, the highest the chance we have to bounce not only back but to bounce beyond. And I really believe that this is a journey of human ingenuity, and this is a journey of scaling in uncertainty. So this again all comes down to leadership. I do think that us as society, we will find a way, but maybe first we need to really hit the wall in really going the lowest so that we really bounce back and bounce beyond. I hope that we won't get to that point, but and we will wake up earlier. And for that, again, we need leadership to drive this journey. We need a different type of mindset.
Okay, let's bring Mansi in on this one, because she's been working a lot with the art of hosting techniques, introducing participatory modeling in order to empower pretty much every individual to participate. Mansi, where can you see this hope? Do we have to hit the bottom, or do we have a capacity to reinvent ourselves? Is every individual really ready to reinvent him or herself in order to serve a more resilient and sustainable future? What is your experience with that?
Yeah, what I'm noticing is that every human has the capacity for that change. They all have the seeds in them, the light in them. A lot of people are unfortunately only going to recognize that when they are in deep crisis. Leaders even move through crisis or by vision, right? So I feel that crisis might still be lacking. But where I see a lot of hope actually is in the indigenous wisdoms, which are being resought, So I see the pathways forward through remembering who we are, re-indigenizing ourselves to not only to our culture, our ways, but also to our land, to our way of living, to part of that ecosystem and the eco cycle that we are a part of. And I think more and more communities or people are in smaller groups moving towards that way of being and living and leading again. And I see a lot of innovation also coming through that, because there's no way we can go back to living how we were. Technology is here. We are not going to be moving back. So I think the question now is, what kind of indigenous leaders do we want to become in the future? So how are we going to re-indigenize to the future, given that we are living in a certain way? And then, whether you call it polycentric or decentralized leadership, which is actually the participatory leadership and the tools and methods with which we work, they are a beautiful way of making decisions together, working with conflict, being in dialogue, listening to all the voices around the edges. And I think people cannot not come to such trainings and be moved and changed. There is, I've seldom seen that people just came in and kind of went like, okay. So there's, it's slow, but it's happening. That transition, that shift, that reawakening, that re-remembering who we are. And I think I also want to make a point around that speed thing, which yes, we need speed for transition, but we also need to slow down at the same time. So there is, there is that thing about we are moving too fast. We're not even, we are not even listening anymore to ourselves. So I love quoting one of my favorite thought leaders, Bayo Akamulafe, on when times are urgent, we must slow down. And I must say, even in my own way of being, I realize that, when things get really, fast, difficult, edgy, I need to slow down. So I think we are fractals. And if I see it in myself, I see it in a community, I see it in the world. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I got 3 strong calls here. 1, innovation, technology, progress. on the other hand, slow down, think about it, and engage collectively in order to see the way forward. We have some very interesting people as well with us today on this discussion. I'd like to invite them to maybe share their thoughts. I have to admit, I still have this pressure in my stomach, which is not the pleasant one, related a bit to frustration of hearing all these fantastic ideas, hearing those and experiencing them, living them. But on the other hand, constantly seeing this destruction that is happening. Do we really have to hit the wall in order to realize that we got to do things differently and collaborate across different experiences and across different centers of power in order to avoid that crash? Ramit, what do you think? You work a lot with the youth. You work with some incredible empowering projects. How do you see the leadership concept? What kind of role do you think leadership plays in the current state of the world?
Thanks, Violetta. First of all, I think it was lovely hearing Mansi and Bianca and all the thoughts that they had so far. I think even though I hear a bit of despondence in a bit of what they say, but I think I also see a lot of hope along with that as well. So I think that's really good to see. I'm going to be a little more despondent also, and actually ask the question to all of you really first, and then I'm happy to talk a bit more about it. When we speak of what leadership ought to be, when we speak of what leadership can do and can achieve, how do we actually first get enough people interested in leadership in the first place, right? Because unfortunately, what ends up happening is that people get interested in leadership for the wrong reasons, for very personal reasons, right? And when we look at the youth today, the unfortunate reality is that a large section of the youth is not interested in leadership. They're not interested in getting into politics or having a position where they believe that, yes, they can be the voice of society and they can put forth the voice of those who are around them, because they believe that someone else is already doing it. They may be doing a terrible job and they all recognize that they're doing a terrible job, but it's not something that they want to put their hand into because the waters are so mucky that they believe that they'll get dirty themselves, and which becomes a massive challenge. So to Mansi and to Bianca and to Professor Nini and to you, Violetta, my question becomes that of all these wonderful ideas that you have, how do we get people to actually want to take up leadership in the first place?
Super, very provocative question. Let's be mindful of time. We have only 15 minutes left. So let's be sharp. Important question. Mansi, Bianca, and Nini, if you have one, sharp answers. I would appreciate your reflection too. Go ahead.
I'm happy to give a very quick one. For me, leadership is not something you have to aspire to. Everybody is a leader. Everybody from wherever they are standing are leading themselves, their lives, the people around them. So it's, my definition of leadership is not positional. It is human. So that's brief.
Perfect. Bianca?
I think we don't necessarily need to aspire to get people to be leaders or to embrace leadership. I think we need to help and support and welcome people wanting to meaningfully affect change and positive change in their life and around them. And I think that there's a lot of fear at the moment floating in the air when people think about everything that we've discussed in terms of challenges. And it is only transformation and be part of the transformation that the way that we can overcome fear. So I think we need to kind of connect with people with their quest for transformation and for rapid and positive change rather than just connecting to a leadership quest.
Wipke also wrote an interesting comment. Leadership is a way of being. So you just are a leader, and then it's just a question where and how you exercise those kind of components. And for young people, I remember, Amit, we were talking the other day at a Global Open House. This was a question. I mean, is it even worth activating yourself as a politician, as a leader, because you cannot do anything? There's such a strong structures already in place that would steer your actions without you basically being able to do what you believe is the right thing. Maybe there is an opportunity for all of us to hold space for young people to dare to. Maybe we should be more curious in the way how they see the world for tomorrow. And Ramit, you're doing an exceptional work. And if we could all really do even more in that respect, maybe we'll learn something about leadership too. So that is something to continue to build on in the future. A very short one from Andrea and Nini as well. And I will share some comments from the chat line as well, because people are putting some great comments there. Nini?
Yeah, I would say that, children learn from not the preaching, but the example. So I would go for Mancy's idea that leadership is the being. So why they are fed up of that, and also why they don't come for the voting. You see, always the voting is like less than 30%, something like that, we have problem. So that is the attitude. The current leaders should change their attitude and then lead the youth by example and not by preaching.
Super. Andrea?
Yes, thank you. So for me, it was very timely, even what you discussed, the panelists, before everything started, that it is on the global scale something that is happening in particular in the past days. And so many thoughts, in particular, the one that we need to re-question again what the leadership means, because at the end of the day, we would need a leader when also we are alone. And I'm speaking about the experience of today. Unfortunately, a huge devastating environment project in Slovenia that just popped up in the most pristine natural park. And unfortunately, all people, even from participatory communities, they're quiet. They're really quiet. So what is then the leadership that on those moments that we are on the brink for our existence and coexistence, that we are quiet, that we are preaching and talking when we are in the nice, safe comfort zone. But when the things happen, and these things are now happening faster, really in the turbulence, without any notice. This is over the night. Sometimes you need 8 years to do this all researchers and permits and the projects. And now the projects pop up over the night, and you need to react. And all those that you would rely on, that are part of this new leadership consciousness communities, suddenly everybody's afraid, everybody is quiet. So what kind of the leadership we need to also push us to join the forces, because these are not the battles for one individuals. This is only the battles really for the networks, for the community of the people.
Fantastic, Andrea, for this comment. This is really straight into our face. When we are in comfort zone, we are very loud. When there is our comfort on the line challenged, and maybe even we are in a position to lose some of our privileges, then we're all quiet. And I think this nails down also this discrepancy between all these profound ideas and excellent examples on a ground level within smaller communities, clusters, and compared to the leadership from the top down on a national or global level. So this might be worth exploring further in our next talks as well. And as Natasha says in the comments, says, look, the new generation understand the life in a new way. Maybe we should observe them better and listen to them better and find the solutions there. So fortunately, we have only 10 more minutes, but we will continue this discussion, because I can see that we dare to speak from our field of truthfulness. We're no longer hiding, trying just to be nice and kind. And out of our field of truthfulness, the true moves will emerge. And that's why this sort of discussions coming together are so important. So at the end, let me just ask you one more question, Mansi and Bianca. You've heard some important responses from your colleagues. And is there an opportunity for something new in the leadership? Can you see something that's not just an improvement of the old, but as Bianca, you talked about innovation, are we seeing some really more provocative ways forward, how to empower this collective leadership instead of individual leadership that is still, especially in politics, so often exercised? Can we see to move from ego to echo, from static to more dynamic networks, from competition to collaboration, from short-term goals to long-term perspectives, and maybe away from leadership as the word, moving towards more responsible stewardships? Bianca and Mansi, your final comments.
Thank you, Violeta. I think this is happening, as I said before, and I see it happening from my role, and I think many people are seeing that there's a change happening. I see, for example, climate NGOs partnering with industry, opening up debate on really tough conversations, or opening up dialogue to understand and transition together dilemmas like critical minerals and environment, hydrogen and water, batteries and their impact. So I see this really happening as we speak, and even obviously not enough, but I see this happening even at political level. I see politicians really listening much more. I see bold policymakers wanting to create a change, partnering with the private side, understanding that for the transition to happen, and at least in the climate space, we will need about 20-30% of public funding, but 70-80% of private funding. So if there's no partnership there, we're not going to get to the targets that are so much pitched and preached. So I see this is happening. What needs to happen is we need to create a louder voice on this. We need to create the space and hold the space for these conversations to emerge even more. And that's what the speed and the scale that I mentioned about is. We need to go faster there. And of course, that only can come if all these stakeholders shift into a different state of being. So all these are intertwined, but it's an orchestration of the velocity of change together. And I see a lot of improvement. So I think that, just as a final thought, I think that also great leaders are really good at managing the narrative, so that others understand how they can also be part of that narrative and shape it together, creating the context for others to jump in and to be part of the change. So I think we need to kind of also embrace a narrative in which this is possible. It's a leadership that brings hope. It's happening. It's emerging at least, and it needs to happen more. And we need to see it more at all levels.
Super. Thank you very much for, again, bringing some light to the conflict zones, which hopefully in the future we'll come back to and address them and try to not only identify them, but go down to the action line and maybe activate ourselves. Mansi, what's your take on all this?
Well, very much everything Bianca said, and I see there's not one path, no one new way forward. I think diversity of new pathways of leadership is what we need. There is no one way to lead. And also, what Bianca said also right at the beginning, something around everybody being in their right spot, using their skills in the way they can. I think it's the same with leading, right? It's like finding our place and leading from that space, but also breaking down that notion of leadership being that one colonial way of leadership. So decolonizing that whole leadership scenario and saying, hey, we had other ways of leading always. What could we learn from trees? What could we learn from water? What could we learn from mountains? It sounds like really cliche if I say it, but it's really, if you really start looking at it this way, I think we will, it's already happening, but we'll discover newer ways of leading, which which I feel are the only way for us to survive, and I don't think we are talking sustainable development goals. We are talking survivable development goals. That's where we are at. And I think we need to roll up our sleeves in whichever way we can and bring in our best, our skills, and work wherever we can. And again, I'm so grateful that the work Bianca is doing, the work Nini is doing, the way Ramit, I know about your work a bit, and Violetta, of course, So I'm just so grateful of all of you amazing humans doing the work which only you can do in that spot. That is the leadership, and building then, sorry, just the last point, building that network or that community of learning from each other, but also keeping each other humble, because power is corruptive, and we need to co-regulate each other's power.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wonderful messages. Lots of levels where a conscious intervention is needed. On one hand, in developing new skills and awakening our inner behaviors in order to cope with the challenges that we are, and to be able to face also seductions and the negative forces, and stand up for what is right, and what you feel that is in your field of truthfulness, growing as the direction that you need to follow. To have this kind of not only awareness, but the courage to do it. Nobody can do it alone. And I think you all stress this today very strongly. It's a collective effort where we're supporting each other, encouraging each other, but above all, also sharing good stories that give us the meat to be able to promote further, and especially to be able to, with the high level of sensitivity, also understand the youth perspective, who is looking at us sometimes and say, we don't want to get anything to do with you, because look where you got our world. Now we have to take everything in our hands. But I don't think that that is a solution either. Cross-generational support, cross-civilizational wisdoms, and an open dialogue where we expand individual mind. And as Bianca and Mansi said at the beginning, empower this collective leadership, which hopefully along our very dedicated actions could become a responsible stewardship, and really move away from the power and enter a realm of strength. And I see that there is an opportunity there for building up the hope for this world as well. So as I promised to Bianca and Mansi, we will end sharp, because they have other obligations further on. But I do hope that this is not the last dialogue we have on this topic. So Isha and Connectathon, thank you for supporting us in bringing this topic forward. Thank you for all the great comments in the chat. We will try to use them in the summary that we will prepare, which will follow today's discussion. And I can't wait to meet you again on similar topic, but with deeper insights into the challenges that we brought some light into to today. Thanks a lot, Mansi. Thanks a lot, Bianca. Thank you to Ramit, Isha, Nini, and Andrea for your live comments. Thank you to also Nurey and Wipke and Natasha for very lively discussion in the chat. So have a great day, and use the empowerment of new thoughts and shared stories to inspire and be yourself a good leader and steward for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye now.